Chaos Space Marines are the most dangerous fighters in the Warhammer 40K universe, and 8 levels separate the weakest of them from a god of war. Every level came at a price that could never be paid back. 10,000 years ago, the greatest warriors the Emperor ever created turned their weapons on the empire they were built to defend. They did not become monsters all at once. They became something worse, slowly, one level at a time, through choices that each made sense in the moment and none of which could ever be undone. That fall started with warriors who still had everything left to lose. Level 1. Renegade Marine. Level 1 sits at the bottom for one reason. This warrior is on his own. Everything that made a Space Marine effective depended on the organization behind him. Without it, he is still a lethal fighter, but lethal is not the same as powerful, and here, the difference begins to show. At the very bottom sits the Renegade Marine. Not a monster or a god, just a Space Marine who turned away from the Emperor and is now paying for that choice. He is still dangerous. A single group of them can overpower regular soldiers whose weapons cannot cut through their armor. They can cripple a large warship through focused boarding attacks. Just the sight of their symbols on a ship can push entire populations to surrender before a single shot is fired. Fear is the sharpest tool they carry, and they use it well. But fear only works as long as it stays useful. When it stops being a weapon and becomes something a renegade chases for its own sake, his discipline falls apart. Some lose themselves in a kind of madness where they believe their own strength has no limits. Others give in to the desire for violence and start killing their own crew without thinking, reducing the warband from the inside. The warband was not falling apart from the outside, it was killing itself from within. One Night Lord's warrior spent 6 centuries drifting through space, held in a trance of silent incarceration while his army scattered and his purpose faded around him. When he finally woke up, the world he found was not the war he had left behind. Whatever he had been named to carry was already stolen. Every resource he needed to fight for it had to be rebuilt from nothing. His body was intact. Every structure that gave him a purpose was gone. That is the shape of level 1. Everything that should have been there is missing. Without the support of the Imperium, the soldiers cannot keep themselves at the standard they were built for. Their armor starts failing internally after centuries without proper care. Ammunition runs low, and there is no clean way to get more. They attack and steal out of desperation rather than planning, gaining nothing lasting from it. Every operation costs more than it returns. It is survival wearing the face of war. On top of that, the physical cost is just as dangerous. Without access to the labs and specialists who created them, a company cannot produce new soldiers. Any tools needed to collect genetic material from the dead are gone as well. Fighters turn on each other over ammunition and territory. When fighters fall in battle, the genetic seed that could have built new warriors is lost with them. Each death is permanent. Each gap in the ranks stays empty. Over centuries, the inability to replace fallen soldiers compounds into something that cannot be recovered from. Fewer fighters, fewer resources, and no system left to rebuild either. Much of the galaxy has forgotten what they once were, leaving them moving through the dark between stars, attacking to survive, and calling it something greater. A Renegade Marine holds the physical strength of a super soldier, but that is all he holds. Everything else has been taken away. Getting it back requires something the lone warrior cannot do on his own, and that is exactly where the next level begins. Level 2. Chaos Space Marine. Level 2 sits above the Renegade because of one change: the Legion. Everything the Renegade lost, joining a Legion restores. But joining is not simply getting those things back. It is trading them for something different, and that trade cannot be undone. Joining up changes everything. A traitor warrior is no longer surviving alone, and the difference is immediate, practical, and permanent. In the novel The Lords of Silence, the bond between body and armor is described as something that changes completely over centuries. One Death Guard commander's visor substrate has become part of his face. and his visual field is now a layered mix of true vision, machine overlay, and dream projections that cannot be separated from each other. These warriors are no longer separate from their armor, but an increasingly close combination of the two, and that combination is what makes them so much harder to kill than regular Imperial fighters. They can keep fighting when bones are broken and muscle is torn beyond what should allow someone to continue. Their bodies carry backup systems built for exactly this kind of war, including the ability to produce acidic spit as a natural weapon. Systems built into their armor push their senses beyond what a normal soldier can access, letting them operate in conditions that would blind or deafen anyone else. These are not luxuries, they're the tools that keep an army alive. As detailed in the book Storm of Iron, Iron Warrior's siege operations are built on precise cause and effect, combining heavy armor, artillery, and coordinated ground assault into a logical system that turns what looks like an overwhelming force into something closer to a science. War machines driven by bound spirits handle the heaviest fighting. Mental warriors among them reach into the spirit realm to gather information, doing the job that regular scouts would normally do. That level of impact is what separates this rank from the one below. A renegade weakens the Imperium. A Chaos Space Marine helps tear it apart. But joining a legion is not just a military choice. Souls are what the Dark Gods feed on, which means every promise sworn to a legion is also a spiritual payment. Over time, the body changes to match this. Bone spikes grew through the metal of mechanical limbs. Mutations reshape the body's structure in ways that reflect the warrior's inner desires. Warriors are bound by strict codes of loyalty and promises of silence, and breaking those promises brings punishment from above. There is also a practice specific to this rank. Through a special organ that takes in memories from flesh that has been consumed, soldiers can absorb knowledge directly from the bodies of those they kill. This practice becomes an addiction over time. Warriors who joined after the original betrayal at Terra carry a permanent mark against them, with older soldiers treating their genetic line as lesser no matter what they actually accomplish. At this point, the organization is no longer dying, it is being rebuilt, and that single change turns bare survival into the ability to fight a real war. But ability is not the same as ambition. Ambition belongs to the level above, and it comes with a cost that the regular fighters never fully see coming. Level 3. Aspiring Champion. Level 3 separates from Level 2 by one quality: initiative. A fighter at that rank follows orders. An aspiring champion creates them before anyone tells him to. That single difference is what the Dark Gods are watching for, and being seen by them has a price. Not every soldier in the ranks waits to be given orders. Some take command before anyone grants it, and that single decision is what sets this level apart from the one below. In the novel Storm of Iron, Hansu of the Iron Warriors shows what this place looks like in practice. He spends 3 months on a quiet mission behind enemy lines, placing targeting devices without holding a captain's rank and with no promise of coming back. Moving ahead of the main force, he finds hidden artillery positions that the main force did not know about, proving that careful intelligence is worth more than fast violence. His work allows a battlecruiser to make exact strikes that no standard soldier could set up. When the gap in the enemy's wall finally opens, he leads the Forlorn Hope, the first group sent directly into that gap, holding his small unit together under fire that would break a standard soldier, and pushing forward until the path behind him is clear for everyone following. And here is the cost of making yourself visible. The Warsmith has not named Hansu captain of the Grand Company. Despite his utter suitability, visibility at this level makes you useful. It does not make you safe. A rising champion's work goes beyond direct fighting. Some pursue high-value targets rather than engaging the main enemy force, finding that quiet intelligence is worth more than direct confrontation. When a top champion within a small fighting unit rises far enough, That rise becomes the direct condition needed for the fighting force to split and expand, creating a new fighting group from the original. Rising champions receive names earned through action from their peers, formal marks of recognition that make them known across the entire hierarchy. Some go through a ritual called the Kantanka blooding, carving fresh cuts into their own face with a ritual blade to renew their loyalty to the host. As shown in the Source Dark Creed, one champion does exactly this before boarding an enemy ship at the front of his unit, going in first. Other warriors follow a code that requires them to throw away their name and sense of self completely, existing only as a tool for the gods until they prove worthy of something more. If a champion falls, his unit is absorbed into a rival's group rather than continuing on its own. Command authority at the next level does not offer these kinds of choices. It removes them, replacing them with something heavier and far more lasting. Level 4. Chaos Lord. Level 4 sits above the aspiring champion because a Chaos Lord rules his warband by personal power alone, though many still fight under Greater Warlord's banners in the Long War. Where Level 3 earns visibility, Level 4 commands it. But gaining that power does not hide weakness. The more a Warlord carries at this level, the more clearly his failures are written on his body for everyone to read. A Chaos Lord is not a promoted officer. He's an independent builder of the Long War, the 10,000-year campaign against the Imperium, holding everything together through personal strength, reputation, and the constant possibility of violence. In the novel Huron Blackheart, Master of the Maelstrom, the full scope of this rank is on display. A warlord controls some of the most powerful warships in the sector and manages entire fleets. His warband includes not only armored chaos fighters, but regular soldiers and alien mercenaries, including reptile-like hired warriors called Traitor showing the full range of what this rank controls. Boarding attacks at this level are designed to target enemy commanders specifically, collapsing a ship by removing its leadership before its hull is ever broken. A Chaos Lord holds the authority to force rival warlords into defeat, or to build entirely new armies designed to shape the future of the Long War, rather than simply repeat its past. A warlord's private failings and ambitions become visible on his flesh as physical mutations, making his inner life readable to anyone who looks at him. His face may glow with pale light, or shift with moving shadows, strong enough to make nearby soldiers feel physically ill. Over time, his body reshapes itself into something that no longer looks entirely human. Internal challenges from rivals appear the moment any weakness shows, and the Dark Gods hold their own punishments in reserve. Failure at the highest degree results in spawndom, a permanent change into a mindless creature with no thoughts remaining. Some warlords spend a long period alone before gathering enough followers to form a fighting force, existing as fighters without a war, waiting by themselves until enough allies can be assembled. Even after building something real, the warlord is not independent. Technical specialists who maintain ancient weapons using warp knowledge and mental warriors who can handle tasks that combat skill cannot are both necessary. Selling military services to outside groups is often the only way to keep the fleet running. Collecting the genetic material needed to create new soldiers is a main goal at this rank, not a side effect of battle. One Iron Warrior who had fought the Long War for 10,000 years found that killing no longer produced any feeling at all. Any ability to feel satisfaction had been worn away past any point of return. That is the mental cost of living this long at this rank. Power without the ability to feel what that power is for. Two paths exist above this rank, and neither one is simply a step up. Both require giving up something a warlord still has, and both offer something he cannot produce on his own. Level 5. Sorcerer Lord and Dark Apostle. Level 5 is where the hierarchy splits. Two completely separate paths lead here, and both sit above the Chaos Lord for the same reason. Both provide things that raw military authority can never produce. travel through the warp, the binding of spirit soldiers, spiritual control over armies that no sword alone can enforce. A warlord can conquer worlds. What sits at level 5 can change what those worlds mean. Warp Weavers command the spirit realm directly. In the storyline Ahriman Exile, Ahriman is depicted using warpcraft and foresight. Haunted by the rubric's outcome, his brother is reduced to dustbound spirits sealed inside their empty armor, and by visions of what may yet come. But the cost of this power is paid every time it is used. Blood runs from the eyes, skin goes pale. Every major act of mental force leaves physical damage behind that does not always heal. Silver shards from old wounds shift with every beat of a sorcerer's hearts, cutting deeper with each breath. In the book The Talon of Horus, Iskander Kaon introduces himself as Kingbreaker, the sorcerer who brought Magnus the Red to his knees in direct confrontation. He kills with raw telekinesis, tearing enemies apart or hurling them into destruction with psychic force. A senior mind warrior holds the power to rebuild an entire army from nothing or reduce it to dust, placing the survival of his own brothers entirely in his hands. When captured, these warriors can be restrained in ways that deny them access to warpcraft entirely, reducing them to vulnerable prisoners no different from any other man. Strangely, the greatest failure at this level did not come from weakness. One great ritual, designed to save his people from genetic damage consuming them, instead turned thousands of warriors into dust and spirits locked inside their empty armor. He was trying to help. That is what complete failure looks like here. Now, the other path to level 5. The Sorcerer Lord reaches this rank by mastering the spirit realm. The Dark Apostle reaches it by mastering men. Both are completely different in how they work. Their position in the hierarchy is not. Armies serving under a holy warrior follows orders as though hearing the voice of the gods. He carries a weapon capable of breaking power armor and the bones inside it. He can work ritual acts that bind warp forces into physical objects. Using a form of spiritual sight, he can project a vision of himself across space for communication and observation. As shown in the source Dark Disciple, Marduk oversees the activation of the Nexus arrangement within a ring-built apparatus, triggering a sequence of events that culminates in the release of the Undying One's construct, which turns towards the Eye of Terror. Maintaining spiritual authority demands everything he has, so a senior war commander handles all military operations for him. If his connection to the gods is broken, the emptiness is immediate and total, removing all sense of direction or purpose. One uses reality as his weapon, the other uses belief. Both sit above the Chaos Lord because both provide what military command cannot produce. Above both of them stands a champion who carries all of these abilities in a single physical form, and the price of becoming that is the last remaining piece of the person he used to be. Level 6. Exalted Champion. Level 6 is the highest point a living, physical warrior can reach before the change that removes him from the mortal world entirely. What separates this level from level 5 is not combat power. It is what happens to an army when the Exalted Champion is present compared to what happens when he's gone. Level 5 provides things armies need. Level 6 is the fixed point that holds an army together long enough to use them. In the Horus Heresy novel Betrayer, Karn challenges the Dark Apostle Erebus, a warrior of level 5, to a formal death duel called Sanguis Extremis, stripped to the waist in front of the assembled warband. He raises his weapon, 3 blows follow. Karn knocks the weapon aside, headbutts him hard enough to break bone, and opens a deep wound across his chest before the word-bearer can even react. After that, the duel becomes a prolonged humiliation, blow after blow, Erebus rising and falling, his weapon hand eventually gone, until Karn's chain axe rests against his spine, and the only question left is whether he will be allowed to stand again. Someone who had held his own against some of the finest warriors in history was beaten so completely that the crowd stopped cheering. They watched in silence, No one has seen Karn fight like that before, not even on a battlefield. Away from direct combat, his role is equally important. Warriors at this level are the ones who hold legions together when the Father Primarchs are absent or falling apart. They manage rival forces, the internal conflicts threatening to pull the organization apart, and the rage-driven breakdowns that no Chaos Lord below them can contain. They function as diplomats who carry weapons instead of documents. His presence alone reduces the worst effects of the Butcher's nails, the metal implants drilled into the skulls of world eaters that push them towards constant, uncontrolled violence. With him present, the army functions. Without him, the host falls apart. In the book Karn, Eater of Worlds, the Apothecarion is described as feeling like a shrine when a legionary lies in an induced healing coma. Nothing fills the space a warrior of this level leaves. Even powerful warp creatures treat the champion's continued survival as a condition required for their own plans, giving him influence among beings far more powerful than him. Without warriors at this level, a legion is not weakened, it is finished. The cost of reaching this level is losing the specific things that made the warrior a person. He carries metal implants in his skull that remove his ability to feel anything except combat. Another wordbearer cannot remove his armor because it is fused with his body, and he shares his physical form with a warp living permanently in his blood. A third version of this cost comes from the source Lucius the Faultless Blade. Identified as the finest swordsman in the galaxy, capable of defeating the skilled blade fighters of the Dark Eldar in only a few exchanges, Lucius is known as the Eternal, a figure who returns after defeat and remains notoriously difficult to end permanently. He requires experimental chemical systems just to feel a basic level of sensation. Millennia of excess have left him unable to feel much of anything through ordinary means, and the faces of those he has consumed appear in his armor, pressing outward as though still trying to escape. An Exalted Champion sits above all 5 levels below because he provides what none of them can offer alone. He remains below the level above because he is still breathing, still physical, still reachable by a blade placed in the right spot. That single remaining limit is exactly what the change above removes, and the price of removing it is the last human thing he had left. Level 7. Daemon Prince. Death stops being a real problem at level 7. An ascended being has crossed the line between physical fighter and warp entity, trading biological existence for something far harder to kill and far harder to understand. What separates this level from level 6 is not power alone, it is how final that removal becomes. An Exalted Champion can be removed with a blade placed correctly. A Daemon Prince cannot be removed at all without conditions that may be impossible to recreate. Described in the source Storm of Iron, the Warsmith's change shows what this process actually looks like from the outside. His armor falls away from his body because it no longer fits what he's becoming. A shadow moves behind his form, shifting the air like great wings beating. First just a suggestion, then a solid darkness that spreads wide. A horn breaks through his forehead in a burst of blood and tissue. His spine cracks and stretches as he screams. He fires bolts of dark energy rather than using weapons. Simply standing near him causes experienced soldiers to collapse, vomiting blood, their bodies rejecting his presence physically. After reaching this point, the Warsmith's ascension follows extreme sacrifice and carnage on a scale that reshapes the battlefield itself, culminating in a violent transformation that warps everything around him. Dark gods do not offer this transformation for free, and second chances do not exist. Warriors who fail at the moment of change do not simply die. They become spawn, mindless mutated creatures with no thought remaining, locked in that state permanently with no way back. Selshakar, described in the book Demon World, stands 30 meters tall, the size of a Titan war engine. Built from gray flesh, dense with muscle, its heart is a block of brass machinery punched through its chest, with valves pumping and pistons driving from its limbs, powered by open furnaces on its back. At one point, it commanded large armies of warp creatures built in its own image before it was hunted down and imprisoned for ages in a bound chamber. When it finally breaks free, metal shards from its collapsing prison drive into its skin and melt on contact. It laughs as everything falls apart around it, overjoyed at being released, rising through molten metal with its wings beating. These ascended beings are described as victory signs for the dark gods, physical representations of specific betrayals and all massacres, carrying a history of destruction that regular warriors can only point towards. When a Daemon Prince is destroyed, he does not simply die, he comes apart. Even so, an ascended being is still a tool aimed at targets chosen by something greater. What sits above him was not built through the same process of rising and earning. It was a son of the Emperor who fell, and those are two very different things. Level 8. Daemon Primarch. At the very top of this ranking stands something that was not born a Chaos Warrior. Built directly by him and designed as the greatest of his sons, each Daemon Primarch represents what the Dark Gods could do to that original design. Nothing at any other level in this hierarchy can match it. Every one of them paid for it differently. Start with the one who understood what he was giving up. In the book A Thousand Suns, Magnus tears apart a Titan, a walking war machine the size of a building, using fire that rips through reality rather than through metal. He reaches across the entire galaxy with his mind. His presence causes the world around him to break down, water turning to acid, the ground splitting open, and the barrier between that realm and the physical reality cracking under the pressure of him simply being there. Sorcerers at lower levels spend years learning to control even basic mental abilities. At this level, those same feats happen without noticing they're supposed to be difficult. All of this started long before his change. He gave up one eye as direct payment in the deal he made with the Warp to save his sons from genetic damage. That payment was not enough. That debt eventually required him to watch his home planet burn to ash. He then gave up his own physical body to rise into a form of pure energy and light, free from the limits of physical matter. That freedom came at the price of being used to destroy the Emperor's greatest hidden project beneath the Imperial Palace, one of the most destructive acts in the history of the Imperium, carried out by a Primarch who once swore to protect it. Magnus makes choices with conviction, and the consequences escalate catastrophically with each one, until Prospero itself burns and the barrier between that realm and physical reality cracks under the weight of what he set in motion. Now consider the one who chose nothing at all. Angren does not operate the way Magnus does. He does not plan, he does not remember, he simply destroys. As shown in the source Angren the Red Angel, burning from head to toe, he walks through sustained fire from multiple super heavy tanks, shears through a main gun barrel with a single strike, stamps down on a heavy tank and grinds it into the road, and keeps moving. Surviving tanks go in reverse, crushing their own infantry in the panic, and he follows. His presence alone causes metal to melt and air to catch fire. Around him, the ship changes, the floor turning to flesh, the walls growing mouths, water supplies turning to blood. His own legion keeps him locked in chains and in darkness for their own safety, because even the fighters closest to him cannot stand near him without risk. He kills hundreds of his own men without stopping. His thoughts are not even equal to those of a child. The reason is completely gone. The metal implants drilled into his skull long before his transformation still work inside his demonic body. They stop him from sleeping. If exhaustion starts to set in, the devices force him awake in a rage. He cannot rest, he cannot stop. When summoned, world eaters across the entire galaxy respond, scattered groups turning and moving toward him as though pulled by a physical force, coming together into a single army simply because he exists. He gave everything away knowingly. Everything was taken from the Red Angel. One is tragic, the other is horror. Then there is the third shape of this power, the one who accepted transformation not for personal gain or after a loss, but because refusing would have condemned every soldier under his care. In the novel The Buried Dagger, Mortarian's change is shown from the moment it begins. Trapped in the spirit realm with his men, suffering with no way out, he spoke his vow without holding back and felt the change take hold immediately. From his spine burst wings like those of a diseased insect, shaking and crackling with new energy. His entire death guard was reshaped in his image afterward, rebuilt as diseased metal, an army rebuilt around their father's transformation. According to the source, his name will be feared until the last human soul fades into nothing. In that same story of Angren's battle, the attempt to face him hinges on gathering 109 relics and reaching the psychic ley line tethering the world to Terra. That is what those specific conditions required in that specific operation. Not weapons alone, not armies alone, a set of conditions built for that moment, and possibly that moment only. 3 different paths, one who chose destruction with full knowledge of what it meant, one who had everything humans stripped away until nothing remained, one who accepted the change to protect the people in his care. All 3 ended up at the same place. Sitting alone at the top of this ranking, the Daemon Primarch is not the most free. He cannot sleep, he cannot act differently than what his god made him to be. He cannot remember what he once was. He sits here because he's the furthest possible point from where level 1 began. Every step in this hierarchy is a trade, power gained, and something human lost, level by level, until what remains is enormous and terrible, and no longer able to recognize what it gave away to get there. Chaos does not simply reward strength. It rewards the willingness to keep paying, level by level, until the person who started climbing is gone. 10,000 years of that process built the armies still fighting across the galaxy, and the history behind all of them runs deeper than any single ranking can cover. If you want to see how the loyal side compares, the 7 levels of Space Marines covers the same ranking system for the warriors who stayed on the Emperor's side, and what separates the weakest of them from the strongest. And if you want to understand what these traitor warriors actually gave up at each level, the Making of Legends covers how a Space Marine is built from the start, which makes every cost in this video land harder.